Welcome to the first Payne Theological Seminary Learn, Lead, and Liberate conversation. I'm Reverend Dr. Kathleen Wright, the Director of Communications for Payne Seminary, and today we will have a conversation with the 117th elected and consecrated Bishop of the AME Church. She is our first female bishop. She is the national chaplain of our illustrious sisterhood, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Presently, at Payne Seminary, under the leadership of Dr. Michael Joseph Brown, she is the director of documentaries. I am presenting none other than the Right Reverend Vashti Murphy McKenzie. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wright, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share today.
Now, it's said that you're retired, but you're still in the thick of an awesome ministry. Bishop, what retirement?
Well, retirement means that you get to choose what you do.
Amen. I like that.
Choose what you do and choose the time frame in which you do it.
Yes, I love that.
At least we like to think we believe that we're doing the choosing when we know that God is choosing stuff for us all over the place.
Right. So documentaries, and you're the director of documentaries here at Payne Seminary. Why documentaries and why now?
There is no better time to tell our stories. I have been passionate about stories, of course, the stories in sermons and preaching and teaching, but if we don't tell our story, then who is going to tell our story? From our side of the page, not telling our story from the margins or from the footnotes, but from our side of the page. For years, I have watched other people take our stories and profit off of our heritage. And we have never, well, we have, but we haven't done it quite in this way. And so documentary gives us an opportunity to have a clip of history, to be able to show people what it was like, what we were doing, how we were doing it, and how this clip of the past has an impact on your present as well as your future. We are always building upon the foundation of our ancestors or the foundation of our previous generation. But unless we know that, how can we value what we're doing now from the platforms the present gives us? And so documentaries is just perfect for this moment. Just absolutely perfect for this moment.
Yes. Now tell us how you began doing the producing of such powerful pieces.
Well, I'm a trained journalist. I was a journalist and wrote for the Afro-American newspaper, the Arizona Republic, and other publications. I'm an author. I've written 6 books. And so the next step to me, the next step is to take these words and make them come alive in a visual format. But the push, I mean, documentaries was nowhere on my to-do list, nowhere, absolutely nowhere. But the push was Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. I was the presiding bishop in the 13th Episcopal District at the time and had a front row seat to what was happening in Mississippi as well as Louisiana. And I was horrified, just as the nation was horrified, looking at the videos that were coming out of the people who were struggling and wrestling with the horrific impact of that hurricane upon their lives. Whole neighborhoods, whole families were broken apart. Things just absolutely was totally decimated and washed away. But what made me angry was that I did not see images of the Black church coming to the rescue of people in that region. I saw everybody else coming to the rescue, but I didn't see us coming to the rescue. I saw the impact upon lives, people on the top of their roofs, hanging on, waiting to be rescued from the top of the roof, people who were hungry, starving, hadn't eaten in days, people who were trapped in waters, trapped inside of the convention center, but no one was capturing their stories. And I was afraid that years would pass, 10, 15, 25 years from now, people would say, that didn't happen that way. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that horrible. And, where was the Black church? So I wanted to capture those stories and was really blessed that other people saw the value in this. And we were able to raise funds and send a video team and a newspaper reporter down into the affected area in New Orleans and Mississippi. And they spent 2.5 weeks capturing the stories and showing the work of the Black church coming to the rescue of people, not just African-American people, but the people who were in danger. And so that was the first. That was the first of sitting at the editor's board. That was the first of sitting behind editors and with videographies and say, this, no, this, that, no, this, that. I knew that it would be something that I would want to do again, but the episcopacy can keep you busy, very busy. And so after Katrina, we did a series of public service announcements that aired. The blessing with Survivor Stories, because that was the name of the documentary, Survivor Stories, is that it aired on TV1 cable network. Kathy Hughes put that, she bought the idea. She said, let me see the finished product around, and it aired. And it also aired on some PBS stations out west in California. So we were just grateful to that, what was happening. A team of AMEs came from California to help with the cleanup from one of our congregations, and a multi-generational and a multi-ethnic team was put together by the Reverend Dr. Mark Whitlock and came all the way to New Orleans and helped with the cleanup, as well as other congregations and other people who rose to the occasion. And we just wanted to capture that story.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So how does that now translate into your new position and into the program here at Payne?
Well, it translates because for the last, 15 or plus years, I have been the chair of the Quadrennial Theme Committee for the Council of Bishops and editor of The Anvil. And The Anvil is the resource guide of the Council of Bishops. Here in The Anvil, you're able to read the sermons, the prayers, the collects, the liturgies. You'll be able to hear the bishops outside of their administrative roles and responsibilities, because we're spiritual leaders first, and then we are administrators. And so we often don't hear that side of the episcopacy. You hear the administrative side. And so The Anvil evolved into a documentary. The first one was The Echoes from the General Conference, and we wanted to be able to capture the significance and the role of the General Conference in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Then we did Echoes from the General Conference. We did The Spirit of African Methodism, which touched on both two continents, Africa as well as North America. We did Preaching from the Front Line, the social justice sermons of our Episcopal leaders. And now here we are at Payne Theological Seminary. What we wanted to be able to do is to continue to do documentaries in an academic setting, so that from what you see visually, you can also have material that scholars can read. You also can have material that students can study, and that can also be translated into other kinds of materials, like Sunday school material, study guides can be developed with a documentary. So to add a little bit more oomph to it, I can see it, but also I can read it and learn it.
I am so excited, Bishop. Now is the time that we're going to share with our viewers a trailer that is highlighting all of your work. This is wonderful. Let us take a look.
Stories matter. The stories of the African diaspora matter. Stories of struggle and sacrifice that tell the traumas and the testimony. Stories that inspire and connect the triumphs of the past to struggles of the present. From its inception, the African Methodist Episcopal Church has had a story to tell. It has been telling its story in a variety of ways, from the Christian recorder the AME Review, Women's Missionary Society's Voice of Missions, the lay organizations We Speak, and The Anvil, the annual resource guide of the Council of Bishops. The Anvil evolved into telling stories of African Methodism in a series of documentaries. Payne Theological Seminary has picked up the mantle to tell the stories of the African diaspora so that their contributions to communities and countries will not be lost. Here is a sampling of our stories.
We're going to have floods, but the Spirit of God is with you.
The churches are the first line for the community.
There's so many things that we've had to endure going through this hurricane.
The devastation is unbelievable.
We start out with Jesus and we're going through.
Katrina was one of the worst natural disasters in the history of the country. Families were torn apart, scattered, and lost.
People who don't have no food, homes, clothes.
More than 1,300 people lost their lives.
We should never, ever be in this kind of situation, ever. Is this America?
With apocalyptic devastation everywhere.
You've got people out here that are hungry. You've got people out here that need housing. Society's not doing it, then the church needs to do it.
Yes, I've lost everything, but God has never left me.
Anything that man makes can be torn apart, but what God makes is eternal.
I don't doubt that God should be mad at America, but that's not the way I understand God works.
The Black church has been a major supportive force, the spiritual backbone of the community.
Let us speak with a unified voice our concerns in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. The frustration of our anger must be repeated all over this country until restoration and healing takes place.
It's almost like mysterious, something that happens every 4 years.
And each General Conference is its own creation, its own creature.
And we've been doing this since 1860. For all of my years, it has been a rather intimidating place.
The General Conference is the one place where people felt like they had the right to challenge.
At that time, he was not president, but we could see him on the front steps.
And now we were all standing there, crowded in this room. And Senator Obama, now President Obama, said, "Would you pray for me?"
Keep me in your prayers, AME. Keep my family in your prayers, AME. Go out and organize with me, AME.
My hope for the church is that we don't lose our history.
I would like for the General Conference to be reminded of why we have brought ourselves into existence in the first place.
When I think of the AME Church, I'm reminded of the quote by Bishop Norris that says, "The AME Church is the best gift that God has given African Americans."
The African Methodist Episcopal Church is a church that was founded on the idea of self-help. Because nobody will do for us what we ought to be doing for ourselves.
The man who had meager resources at the time himself decided that if we put our nickels together, then we can not only help ourselves, but we can help our brothers and help our sisters to get to a point where they can help themselves and help somebody else.
But social justice is very important to AMEs because somehow or another it seems to be part of our DNA, our origination. It's our essence.
What we're really going to have to do is look at what's really significant that makes us who we are.
Apartheid in South Africa now, the story hasn't really been told, but it started in the AME Church.
Black people, people of color, anywhere in the world could be anything they wanted to be. Man, it gets you fired up.
What happened in Charleston, South Carolina at Mother Emanuel was absolutely horrific.
I was devastated.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
As we passed through the various communities, white folk, black folk,
The smaller town,
standing with American flags, the flag waving, tears flowing. I said, my God, but why did it take that tragic incident for that to happen? And then shortly thereafter, the removal of the Confederate flag, something that I knew was not going to occur in my lifetime.
But Mother Emanuel, since 1818, has stood for freedom and worship for African Americans in South Carolina. And so it's an humbling privilege I have to serve as its pastor.
Wow. Awesome and inspiring. Survivor stories, echoes from the General Conference, preaching on the front line, and the spirit of African Methodism. Now, Bishop, tell us about your newest production.
Well, before I tell you about the latest production, I do want to say thank you. I want to thank Dr. Michael Brown for giving us an opportunity to do this work under the banner of Payne Theological Seminary. Most gracious to do that, and all of the support team like you, Dr. Wright, and others who will be a part of the dream team, if you will. And I also want to thank my colleagues at the Council of Bishops, because through the years you're hearing their voices, their ideas and thoughts of the impact of our history and heritage has in the life of the AME Church. Now, what's next is AME Next. That is the title of the next documentary, AME Next. We have over 50, 60 interviews already done. We had wanted it to be done by for the 2020 General Conference, but you know there was a little thing happening called the pandemic.
Yes.
The global pandemic that kind of interrupted everything. I wouldn't say railroaded everything, but it made us do a pivot. And so in the pivot, we are bringing those interviews back to life, but we're also going to be adding to it, because it'd be difficult to talk about what's next in the African Methodist Episcopal Church without some conversation around the pandemic. And so we want to add that to it. And hopefully it'll be done this year by late spring.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bishop McKenzie, this has been awesome. We are excited about the work you are doing. We pray God will bring all of the sources, resources, and people you need to complete the work and even to further the work. You know that everyone here at Payne Theological Seminary are here for you and your additional team. And so I just want to thank you for allowing us to spend this time with you. Thank you for how you continue to bless and build the kingdom and to further theological education here at Payne Seminary.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for debuting this, especially at a special time when our eyes and ears and our attention is focused on the founding of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. What a joy, what an opportunity, what a great work that you and Payne Theological Seminary is doing. Stories matter. Yes. Our stories matter. And we ought to be the ones to tell that story. Thank you. I also like to lift up one or two other people because when you have a dream, there are also people who help you build that dream. When there is a vision, there are those who join hands with you in making the vision work. And there's absolutely too many names to mention, but I do want to mention Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. When I shared this idea of these last several Anvil documents, he jumped right in along with Phil, our photographer, and Mark and others, and it was just great. Thank you, because most people don't realize that when you have hundreds of interviews and photos and videos, that that have to be captured and reviewed and cataloged, and post-production is like, whoa. You really need a lot of people who believe in what you're doing to be able to get it done. I also want to thank Bishop Gregory Ingram, who is the Executive Director of Mapping of Black Methodism, because as we stretch beyond this next documentary, we'll be able to capture the stories of Black Methodism and those issues that face the African diaspora. I want to thank Dr. Roderick Beelan, who is our general officer of the publishing house. That is the new home of the Anvil, and the council has placed the Anvil into the capable hands of Dr. Beelan and the AME Publishing House.
I want to take this moment to thank you, our viewers, for spending this time with us. For additional information on Payne Seminary, our academic programs, and additional initiatives like the Mapping of Black Methodism and the Anderson Ecumenical Institute, go to payneseminary.edu. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And may God continue to bless you.